Hi, my name is Dave from DV Labs, and with me today is Mike Ivey from Cafe Life. And Mike and I have been working together for many, many years, and we are good friends. So thank you for grabbing on a link, and however you got to this podcast. Thanks for giving us your time. So both Mike and I are we're passionate about helping people make change, helping businesses improve, grow, scale. And more importantly, we are really passionate about helping companies become sustainable. Sustainable in the way they do business, sustainable in terms of the environment, it's sustainable in the way that we go about doing what we do. And so part of the work that Mike and I are involved in is helping companies achieve their sustainability goals. So today, I wanted to talk around the topic with Mike on how do you create a culture that then facilitates us achieving these sustainability goals. So, Mike, I'm just going to start by laying a bit of my own experience, and then I'm going to throw a question at you there. So over the last 10, 12 years, my company Energy Drive that we started has been working with companies and putting equipment in place that is attached to large motors that significantly reduces the carbon footprint and the kilowatt hour consumption. Now, it's a zero capex model, and you would have thought that this would have been embraced very easily and very quickly into businesses. But it's been my experience that as you bring this new technology in, it got met with a number of barriers that I didn't foresee. Some of those barriers were in the way procurement would look at it, or in the way the engineering team would look at these ideas. And I quickly realized that the reason that this new technology was facing these barriers was because there hadn't been any change management or indeed change of thinking, none of that work had been done beforehand. And so the people felt that these new ideas were just being imposed upon them. And of course, all sorts of things get challenged when you feel an idea is imposed upon you, even though they can see the benefits are really good. And really, that's what got me thinking about how we can help organizations achieve their sustainability goals by first and foremostly helping them have the right conversations and change the culture. Now, Mike, I know you've had a lot of experience in culture change and change management, etc. So let me throw the ball to you and give you the big question. Where do you start in helping to change the culture of an organization in order to see their sustainability goals achieved? Where would you start?
I think the big thing for me is that culture, which is the way people think, feel, and behave, can only be engaged with the people in an organization when we engage them at a very adult to adult space and we have conversations with them. So everybody's telling themselves a story about everything. You've got a story, Dave, about some of the events that are going on in the world. I've got a story as well. And we often seem to think that people will just adopt our story. And people won't, because people have got feelings and they've got ways of being, thinking, believing. So when we come along and we give an instruction, and the instruction might say, hey, we're going to look after the planet in this organization. It might sound very aspirational. It might sound very good. And we sort of think, well, everybody's going to get on that bus.
Yeah.
But people only get on the bus when the story that they tell themselves is, I need to get on the bus. And we make so many assumptions and we have the strategies then, but we've never ever taken the time to engage others at an adult to adult space. So for me, the first big thing about culture is the people who work with you are adults. They've got a story that they're telling themselves. And the only way that story gets amended, altered, shifted, changed, whatever, is by engaging them. And here's the beautiful part. When you engage their story, you just might find that your story needs to shift as well. And hopefully we get a better collective story.
Absolutely. You know, that's interesting because you would think that everyone would want to get on board with achieving sustainability goals. I don't think it's too much to assume that everyone can see the world and the planet is in trouble. And if we carry on behaving the way we are, it's only going to get worse. I don't know anybody that wouldn't necessarily agree with that. So you would think that the easiest thing in the world will be to announce we're going to make some changes because we all want to become greener. Yeah. And I think that's the mistake people make, is they assume that people will be able to make those changes, you know, with little to no facilitated conversation or whatever you. And maybe that's one of our first problems, this assumption that we have, right?
Yeah. I think there's often a battle taking on between the things that we believe in and the things that we really care about. And all of us believe in being healthy. Well, I don't know anyone who doesn't believe in health being a good thing. But there's other things that we care about, and care about is what you devote your time to. So when we talk about the environment, most of us believe in looking after the environment and that we have a responsibility here. But every single day I wake up and I've got choices to make, and my choices are directed by what I care about, really care about.
Yeah.
There was an interesting study done where college students and were tested or asked, you know, what they believe in, and they all believe in respect, caring for other people, blah blah blah. But they care more about results, though. So when it comes to, do I help this person or do I put my own studies in? I care more about my own stuff.
Yes.
And yet we do believe in being respectful, you know, helping other people. But most of us actually care more about, about self. So, you know, culture is therefore telling us that people might nod passively, but you've got to work through with them all the other things that are in the diary, that are in the agenda, and that together we need to demonstrate that not only do we believe in this, we so care about it that we're willing to sacrifice for it.
Yes, yeah.
Strong cultures are evident when people so care and believe in their culture that they will risk and actually take a knock for it. Then you know you've done the work.
I think that word you said there, risk, actually goes to the nub of some of this. So I think that there's firstly the risk of one's own reputation. So when you're bringing some new way of doing something, some new equipment, some new approach, and you are being seen as the driver of that, there's a risk that it may fail and it may look bad on you. There's the risk that the particular equipment or whatever may not work, may cause problems to the business. So the CEO may see that as a risk. You know, the whole thing of if it isn't broken, then don't try and fix it kind of thing. You know, I certainly have experience when you perhaps bring a new idea to a company or doing something differently. The first place certainly engineers go to is all the reasons why it shouldn't work, why it can't work. That's the first place. And I think a lot of people give up at that hurdle because they don't want to go through the process of listening to those challenges and finding solutions, overcoming those obstacles. You know, that's where people fail at the first hurdle. And I think a lot of it is people don't want to take their personal risk of change, you know. And I think that's something, giving people confidence, right?
Yeah. So if you take, you know, the engineer, what does she care about? They care about being right. They care about their reputation.
Right.
They care about being in control. And then you come along and you're presenting a great argument on the environment, and they believe in that as well. But they care more about being the decision maker or the old way, comfort, and those sorts of things. And I think those are often the challenges that organizations need to overcome when they're establishing culture. Everyone's going to nod their head in approval to a culture of respect, a culture of resilience, a culture of courage, a culture of looking after the environment. But we've got to realize that culture is going to push on things that people care about. And therefore, the culture has got to be facilitated and worked on. Here's another thought, and I'm going to borrow a little bit from Brené Brown here. We might say to people, we want a courageous culture and a risk-taking culture. But here's the deal. If we are going to be courageous, and I'll use Brené's words here, it means you're going to get your ass kicked, and you're going to experience failure. But do we teach people how to deal with failure, because failure potentially brings shame? So it's one thing to have the aspiration of we're going to be resilient and risk-taking, but it's another thing to prepare people for that world where you are a risk-taker.
Yeah.
Because a risk-taker means that the control that you used to have, you don't have right now.
I love that.
Again, if we go back to the engineer, Dave, that's why we could get this nodding passively, but a resistance inwardly, because there is the chance of it not being what it used to be.
And I think I love what you're saying. I mean, firstly, I've been in many rooms where people have nodded yes on the outside and shaken their heads no on the inside. You know.
Yes.
And I've often I've heard this before. It is all when you're trying to help people get to a decision, it's better to get them to the no rather than the yes. If you can get people to tell you their objections to an idea sooner, it's a lot quicker then to get over the objection to a yes. Yes. But what we're so wanting people to agree with us all the time that they will agree with you until you leave the room, and then they'll voice all their objections. And I think when we talk about helping people create a culture, it's helping people have a discussion where they feel that they can bring the no's out into the public, and they can vocalize why they think things might be a problem. And then you can have the conversation in the room. You know, so many times we have conversations, but the real ones happen when we're not in the room. Yes. Where, you know, we can't do anything with it, you know. Someone once said this, culture is a learnt pattern of behavior. So a culture is a way that you do things that you've learnt either by osmosis, being in it, or being taught it as an early age, you know. And certainly I know in the engineering discipline, in the financial disciplines, the disciplines of business, there's some very well laid down practices that form cultural behaviors and norms. But if we are going to make a significant change in an organization to bring about these sustainability goals, it is going to require changing those rules of behavior, which we would call a paradigm, right? Have you had any experience in exactly doing that, changing a paradigm in an organization?
Yeah, so, you know, for me, when I think of culture, and you said it beautifully, the first thing that leadership needs to do with culture is they need to define the culture that they want. Now, the definition is normally the easy part, even though it's not necessarily scientific. It's a bit of challenge that needs to take place. But then we need to get to the activation, just like you activate a brand. So you need to activate the culture. And the activation of culture is a repetitive process. So what we try and do as we go into organizations is we try and look for ways to get the message repeatedly in a conscious place. And if something is in a conscious space long enough, it can eventually move into a non-conscious space. But the only way that you get things from conscious to non-conscious, from head to heart, is through a process of absolute repetitiveness. But the repetitiveness can be fun, and the repetitiveness needs to be storytelling, engaging emotions.
Yes.
So, you know, a person who I really look up to in this space is John Kotter. And, you know, Kotter speaks and he says, we don't convince people because we give them spreadsheets that shift their thinking. We create culture because we engage truths that impact people's emotions and hearts. Yeah. And so, Dave, you know me, I love the story, and we need to create emotive narratives. And this is what we try and do with organizations, is to create emotive narratives, which is sometimes in the form of pictures, sometimes in the form of story, sometimes in the form of other multimedia forms. But you need to do it long enough so that it eventually becomes part of the bloodstream.
It needs to get under the skin, doesn't it? Yes. It needs to penetrate under. You know, and I think I know that a lot of coaches have been criticized of coming over and almost being so soft and so airy fairy that the CEOs, the T's of these worlds, they want to see the concrete, absolutes. And I think that this approach is both and. It's about creating the emotion that changes the internal conversations that we were talking about. Yes. And it's also about engaging in real world KPIs and real changes in structure and the way that decisions are made. It's both and, working together, that bring these changes. And I think that's what we're passionate about helping organizations to do.
Yeah. Culture definitely involves leadership. So leaders need to define, leaders need to know where they're going. And then the culture becomes an enabler to those aspirations that we have. And the culture is not for sissies, because culture is really saying we need to have the conversations that we need to have.
Yes.
A lot of times people will say people are resistant. Well, maybe they are, but maybe leadership perspective, a conversation we're not prepared to have or to engage in going. So culture is soft, and it's also it's very brave, because we're going to go where maybe we're nervous to go, but culture needs to be led. It's a function of leadership to establish the type of environment that is supportive of the goals that we want to achieve.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so culture is the domain of leadership, but culture is collaborative, culture is inclusive, culture is engaging.
Absolutely.
And it's not a quick fix. I think that's
I'm glad you said that. I was about to say, if you want to go fast, you have to go slow. You have to go slow in order to go fast. And so we're going to wrap this up, but as an organization, if you're looking to achieve your sustainability goals, and right now the goals may seem insurmountable, you don't have the resources, either financial or in people, and you've got a time frame against you, then Mike and I would love to chat with you, because we would like to talk how we can help you change the story, help bring the culture that's necessary, create the best fertile ground in which to then plant the seeds of transformation, to change the organization into a sustainable one. We're passionate about doing that. Mike and I are passionate about working with you, and we'd love to hear more from you. So however you found our podcast, whether it's on our websites or wherever you found it, click on the links around it, and we would love to chat to you more. And we'll be doing many more of these podcasts in the time. So thanks for listening. And from Mike and I, we hope you have a sustainable and a good year ahead.
Cheers, everyone.